Welcome back to the Fantasy Network, everyone. My name is, of course, Jimmy Nuts, and today we're going to be doing a mid-year update. I do this every single year to say, hey, here's how the year's going, and what can we expect from this channel and from me in the back half of 2024. I'm going to talk about things that I'm really excited about, things I'll be continuing that I would like to make somewhat of a goal, and, just a couple things that I'd love to squeeze in off the TBR. But, of course, everything is always up for change because this is the year of the mood read. Also, I'll be going over some things about the channel updates, if you will, but largely just trying to catch up for you and then give you an opportunity in the comments to let me know how your year's going and what things you're excited about in the back half. I'll talk a little bit about new releases coming as well because this is a pretty big year. So how is 2024 going for me as a whole? As a reader, I would say actually pretty well. There's a good amount of variety, though the quality has also varied greatly too. I would assume that my average rating this year has probably been lower than in past years. And that is due to the fact that I've read a lot of the stuff that I was most interested in. And now I am just, expanding my horizons, trying to find other things that I could fall in love with. Some of it hits, some of it misses. It really is a mixed bag. Genre-wise, I've had a lot of people say, Fantasy Network, Jimmy, you're not reading as much fantasy as you used to. And it made me wonder at this point, how many fantasy books am I reading compared to everything else? And I'm happy to let you know that I'm still reading by far, almost to a 2-to-1 factor, fantasy books compared to other genres. Do I read some sci-fi? Absolutely. Do I read lit fic? Absolutely. Did I read one nonfiction book this year? I did. But as it seems to me, in my counts, my fantasy books this year are 17. Sci-fi I've read 10 of. Lit fic or general fiction, maybe a thriller, basically combining everything else, is 10. And I have one nonfiction book, which was the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, which was phenomenal. But as you can see, I'm still predominantly fantasy here. And I've had some people say, are you going to change the name from Fantasy Network to the Fiction Network? And I did consider this. I actually thought about this for a long time, and I don't think it's necessary. And the reason being is, one, I still read fantasy more than anything. It's still my favorite genre. But on top of that, I have like hundreds of videos where I said, welcome back to the Fantasy Network, everyone. My name, of course, is Jimmy Nuss. So I don't think it's a great idea to switch it. And I also just don't think it ultimately matters. I don't think it matters if I change it, but I also don't think it matters if I don't change it. I could probably just call the channel Jimmy Nuts and just it be me. But for all intents and purposes, at least for now, I think things are going to stay the same. Maybe I'll change my mind tomorrow. Who knows? But I was happy to see that this genre split is still predominantly fantasy. And that's because lately I've been craving more fantasy works. I have, of course, dipped my feet into Kazuo Ishiguro, Cormac McCarthy, Murakami, other authors as well. There's plenty of them. But at the end of the day, the one thing that I always want to come back to is fantasy. And I have been craving it lately. I just want new things and new series to jump into, new worlds to get lost in. And the fact that I still have that spark and that motivation to find new escapes or to find new worlds is awesome to me and makes me feel still like I'm right where I should be doing these type of videos. The only question is how do I finish these series that I start that I really like while also wanting to try new things and also keep things like the reading vlogs and whatnot on the channel fresh? And the answer is that it's not easy. You have to kind of balance those things, but there are a few things that I am very much interested in finishing, if not by the end of the year, early into next year. Some of these things aren't even finished, but they're ones that I'm like, okay, anytime I can fit something in, these would be the ones I'd be going towards. Of course, number one is Last King of Ostenard by Tad Williams, the sequels to Mary Saw and Thorn. I'll be starting Empire of Grass probably tonight, I think. There's a 100% chance of me finishing that series this year. Book 4, which is The Navigator's Children, will be coming out this winter, and I will be caught up in time for that, and I will be reading that. So that's about the only thing I'm 100% for sure going to finish this year. I'm pledged to that, and I want to stick to it because I love the Witchwood Crown so much. Definitely one of the brightest spots of the first half of 2024. Another one is the Darkstar trilogy, which is not finished yet. The last book, this is by Marlon James, Black Leopard, Red Wolf, Book 1, Moon Witch, and Spider King is Book 2, and the third book was supposed to be out this year, but now it's looking a lot more like 2025, but I would really like to read the sequel. Beautiful cover. I really want to read the sequel because I read the first chapter and loved it, and I loved Book 1, even though it's not, it's definitely going to be one of those things that's a niche for people. Not everyone's going to enjoy this, and I think I've been pretty clear about that. But for me, this is something I want to read. So I'm hoping to get to that second book by the end of the year, especially because my friend Bookish is actually reading it this month for his Jimmy July, our month of Jimmy that he's doing, where he's reading a bunch of fantasy books. He's actually reading the sequel. So I'd like to try to get to that very soon if I can, so I can talk to him about it. But outside of that, Pliocene is one of those series that I started this year and that I'd like to get back to. I included it in a reading vlog. I said it's this lost science fiction epic. The Pliocene saga is by Julian May, and it starts out with The Many-Colored Land. And then the following books, I can't remember the name of them, but I want to read these. I think there's 4 of them, I believe. And they're not terribly long, but man, are they fun. And they have a lot of really cool world building of them traveling back in time to the Pliocene era of Earth, but they're fleeing this utopia, and there are lots of twists and turns about when they come through that portal. Things are not what you would imagine them to be, and it really did captivate me in the first book. So I would like to continue with the Pliocene saga, and then continuing on with kind of a sci-fi, even that's more of a sci-fantasy, a little sci-fi feeling, is The Expanse. I read book 3 finally after waiting a year since book 2, and I would like to get in at least one more Expanse book before the end of the year. So I have started a lot of great series, and there are some new releases coming that are wrapping up series. So for instance, the big one, Navigator's Children, which I already talked about, but also The Fury of the Gods, which the Bloodsworn Saga by John Gwynne. I have really loved a lot of what John Gwynne has done. The Hunger of the Gods wasn't a complete hit with me, and now this third book has to really deliver for it to save that trilogy for me. And there are certain things that could happen in the opening chapters of that book that could make me very happy or very upset, depending on what John Gwynne does with certain characters. So Fury of the Gods is one of those new releases. A lot of people are like, oh, you're going to read it on release. I'm not planning to. I think this one's probably going to get punted into the next year, so I don't think I'm going to get to that. Disquiet Gods by Christopher Rocchio, Sun Eater 6. I loved the first 3 books, and then I had a bit of a mixed experience with 4 and 5, some ups and some downs. So Disquiet Gods is another one of these books that I'm hoping can get me back on track with the series, and I'd like to try to fit Disquiet Gods in before the end of the year, but no guarantees there either. Mercy of the Gods, which is a new book by James S.A. Corey. I said I was going to read this on release. I actually ended up getting an ARC for it, but I'm not confident that this is going to happen. So if I don't read another Expanse book, it'll be Mercy of the Gods. My friend Alan from Library of Alexandria gave it like 6 out of 5 stars, loved it. And I'm a huge fan of Daniel Abraham. I like James S. Corey work as well. But Mercy of the Gods is one of those ones I'd like to get to, but it's going to just have to be at the right time. Final one, The Boogeyman of the Year, which is not my most anticipated release. My most anticipated release is Navigator's Children by Tad Williams, but of course, Stormlight 5, When in Truth, is coming out, and this is going to be a huge event on BookTube. People are going to be tired of hearing about it. I get it, but hey, you know what? I'm excited for it. I have plenty of things to say about Brandon Sanderson. I've had amazing times with him. I've had horrible times with him. I would say lately, I've not been seeing eye to eye with his work as much. However, it's still a huge release in a fantasy series that I do love overall, and I happen to be a part of the Lost in Roshar podcast over on Lost in Discovery, so this is a big release. This year's crazy. Between House of the Dragon on my Bend the Knee podcast and then Wind and Truth on Lost in Roshar, it's just a crazy busy time, but it's all good stuff. So I am excited for Stormlight 5. I'm obviously going to be reading that on launch. I'll be reading the preview chapters up to it, but you can pretty much guarantee you'll know my thoughts about it once I finish it here in the year of 2024. Now, as far as just like other things that I've been really interested in, there's been 4 books that have really jumped to the top of my TBR, and I know that I've already mentioned one of them, so I'm not going to mention again, which is the sequel to Black Leopard, Red Wolf. I won't talk about that, but these next 3 I have not mentioned really anywhere. And I feel like I need to bring them up because they just jumped up the TBR for some reason. All of them, I read the first chapters and I'm like, these are great. And one of the main reasons I want to make this video because I want people to know that I'm excited about getting to these, and I hope I can fit them in after this month of August that's coming up. The first one is Anathem by Neil Stevenson. I've heard so many varying opinions about this, but the fact that it is just an absolute secondary world with tons of world building, very, very thick book. And it says, for 10 years, the main character, a young avowed, has lived in a cloistered sanctuary for mathematicians, scientists, and philosophers, protected from the corrupting influences of the outside world. And then essentially it sounds like the world starts to open up to this person because there's huge things at stake. Almost sounds possibly apocalyptic or cataclysmic is what it says on the back. This is just a book I've really wanted to read Neil Stevenson, and this is one that I think could work for me. I've had it recommended to me multiple times. I know Jared Henderson loves this book, and his recommendations to me have been very solid. So that is one that has climbed up to TBR. Maybe I'll fit it in by the end of the year. The next one is a pretty general one, and I've actually read the first couple pages of it, and that is Neuromancer by William Gibson. My good friend Kai loves this book, and I really wanted to read this for him, but I also know that our good friend Better Than Food read this and enjoyed it as well, and it's just an absolute classic of the sci-fi genre, and I feel like as I get better read in sci-fi, I have to read these works to pave the way. Neuromancer's obviously on that list. Now, this last one came from comments, I believe, from my post-apocalyptic vlog I did here on the channel. And whoever it was that recommended this to me, whether it was in my Patreon Discord or in the comments, I just want to thank you because I would have never saw this book. And it's called The Failures by Benjamin Lyer. By the way, what a great author name, Benjamin Lyer. This book is from DAW. It was endorsed by Tad Williams and Christopher Rocchio, who I know, are two beloved people here on BookTube. And what Tad Williams said on this, it really perked up my ears, okay? The Failures reminds me of so many good things, not least Stephen King's Dark Tower stories and Mervyn Peake's Arc Gothic creation Gormenghast. He also goes on to list China Miéville, Ursula K. Le Guin, Rogers Leslie, and Gene Wolfe. And I got to tell you what, anything that gets related to the Dark Tower, this is the first thing I've ever heard compared to the Dark Tower by Stephen King. And for all its faults, the one thing that I really do love about Dark Tower is the world and the mysteriousness of it all. And my big complaint about Dark Tower is I wish I got more of that atmosphere and more of the world building and less of all like the weird Kingisms that he does. And from what I can tell, this book is trying to set out to do things in that vibe and in that tone. So I do not expect this to be at all really like Dark Tower, but what I'm expecting it to do is to capture that weirdness. And from what I can tell, this world is kind of like shaped like a mountain, and these people are meeting to find out that there's a giant buried at the bottom of the mountain that like could destroy the world. But it's weird because like the land is like, it's like a tower, which I think is where the Dark Tower stuff comes in, but it's like very fleeting and esoteric. I've read the first chapter of it, and it kind of threw me for a loop. The writing, I think I like it. I'm not sure yet, but the vibes were off the charts. So I would love to get to this before the end of the year. I do know it's a trilogy, but this book literally came out this year, so this is a new release. It's about 500 pages or so, and none of the sequels were out, so I could, join the hype train for this. And who knows, maybe I won't even like any of these books, but they're just books that have somehow come into my view. Now, as far as pledges go, I've made it through almost every single thing that I said I would read this year. Ash Secret History by Mary Gentle, book 1, is another one that I said I would read this year. I do plan on getting to that still. That's one of those ones I feel really obligated towards because it has not a ton of love here on the BookTube space, at least in my corner. And Mary Gentle is a super important author from what I can tell, and very interesting, like historical fantasy fiction with an unreliable narrator that is like a frame narrative, emails. I don't know. It is a weird book and concept. So I'm excited to give it a go. I just haven't been in that medieval type of mood lately, but I think that one's going to be near the end of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if that was like November or December. Heroes Die. I have to read this book. I've been talking about reading it for 4 years. I have to read it this year. Like, I have to at least try it. If I DNF it, that's fine. I have to try Heroes Die by the end of the year. And to follow up with that is Parable of the Sower, one I really wanted to read in July because apparently July 2024 is actually mentioned in the book. Didn't happen, so I'm going to read Parable of the Sower, I think in September or October. Loved Kindred last year, one of my favorite books of all time. So I have a lot of hype. I'm trying to give you guys an idea of like things I'll be talking about, things I'm excited about. All this could change, but maybe this could be a loose TBR for the rest of the year. And of course, everything I mentioned is not going to get read, but it's in my vision. It's out on my shelves, on my coffee table for me to pick up and read. And now the channel updates, which is where people are like, is he closing the channel? No, I'm not closing the channel. CWN Chatting with Nuts is still the breadwinner, I guess we'll say, or the main event of this channel. It has been a staple for many years now. It is my favorite thing. It's the thing I think I'm best at, and it's the thing that people seem to enjoy the most. So Chatting with Nuts is going to continue. I'm going to have more in-person guests in the future, though those episodes have been amazing. Having Murphy here in person, first off, she's just one of my best friends, and I love her to death. But more so, doing that episode in person lit a fire under me. The energy is totally different when someone's in the room. I would like to be doing that more. I'm going to try to make that happen. It's not always going to be possible, but it's going to happen more often than it has in the past. We've only done it twice. We're going to do it more than that, hopefully in the back half of the year. If at all, maybe even next year, we'll do it a little bit more. My wrap-ups in a nutshells will continue because I love the Patreon pick. I love challenging myself to talk about books in a little bit more of a concise fashion. And then the vlogs have been a huge change on the channel, right? Reading vlogs were not something I did at all. And I have to say, I really have loved them. There's certain things about them that I go back and forth on, but overall, I'm enjoying them. I think they help me formulate my thoughts on books, which I love to bring to you. And vlogs will continue here on the channel. I was thinking about maybe possibly trying to do 2 a month, but I don't want to stress myself out and feel like I'm forced to record them. The second one this month was for Kushiel's Dart, and I don't know if that's going to happen because I actually lost my first update, and the audio on the third update is completely unusable. So I'm in a really weird spot where I don't know. There's a chance that for all the Kushiel Dart fans that were looking forward to that vlog, it might just come into the wrap up and I'll talk about it a little bit more at length, which brings me to my next point, which is I would really like to be doing 2 episodes of Chatting with Nuts a month, which is ironic because in July, the schedule's been crazy. So I did not get to do 2 this month, but every other Friday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, Chatting with Nuts is most likely going to be on. Wrap up once a month, vlog once a month, and then I would like to add another video. And whether that video is a review or a tag or some sort of topic or author deep dive or something, I would really like, especially after Stormlight 5's gone and my other projects are slowing down a little bit, I would really like to get back to doing another normal upload a month. So with a wrap up, a random video, a vlog, 2 CWNs, it's about 6 videos in a month. That I feel like that's enough variety and really good. Right now, it's usually about 4 videos a month. So I'd like to get up to 5 or 6, but I don't ever want to commit to a schedule because that just makes this feel a little less fun. So we've been doing this for a long time. We're almost into year 5, and I feel good about this channel. I feel good about the community that I have built, and I am not someone who compliments himself very often. So this is one of the good things that I've done in my life. And it's also been such a relief to be able to find people like-minded who have good, nuanced conversations and that are respectful. So thank you for everyone that's helped build this up. We're going to go into this back half this year with a lot of books. I really wanted to get on camera today to just tell you how excited I was about some of these books. I am so stinking excited about The Failures by Benjamin Lyer. I'm so stinking excited about Anthem, I don't know. Neil Stephenson, I hope that I like your book because you write a ton, and I would like to like more of your books, so that would be cool. But there's so many things that are unknown. Will Heroes Die be my favorite book of the year? Who knows? Everyone says it would be. Will Neil Stephenson deliver? Will I like the next Marlon James book? Is Ash Secret History by Mary Gentle the biggest hidden gem in booktube history? We don't know, but I hope to maybe find out. How is your year going here in 2024? What have you read so far? What are you looking forward to the most in the back half of the year? Let me know down in the comments below. If you end up liking this video, you can hit like. If you dislike it, you can hit dislike. And if you love it, think about subscribing. There's a Patreon in the description. It's optional, but always appreciated. Until I see you next time, be good, be safe, and remember to always keep turning the page. I'd like to give a big shout out to all my patrons, especially my Kingsguard, which include Bridger, Zan, Adam K, Emil, Jonathan J, Prithvi, Eric B, Chadia, Taylor D, Matthias D, Carlos, Yolanda, John C, John, Garrick, Evie, Henrik, Benjamin C, Sebastian M, Frank C, C. Scott, Jacob Wade, Darren, Jobot, Terrence F, Michael B, Lauren M, Nicholas E, Kai C, Kev, Ryan, Shad, Amanda V, Ikaika, RJ, Stuart C, Oscar A, Derry, Tanner, Stromboli Bones, Damon H, Kuiper, Adam, Caitlin S, Curran G, Slay, Mark J, Mike J, Darnell H, Sabo Archipelago, which I think someone put that name because I know I can't say that word, and Social Tias. Thank you all so very much. You are the best.